Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Masterson. I am the CEO and co-founder of Green Hat Web Solutions, and we are very excited to be here today. We are doing a series of webinars with the Commons on Champa and the Denver Economic for Opportunity and Development on e-commerce. So the COVID pandemic has really changed the way we work and also the way businesses operate. More and more businesses are going to e-commerce, and so there was a great need for to have more educational series on how to create an e-commerce website. Everything from filing the paperwork, choosing which platform to use, which we'll get into today, optimizing images, SEO for e-commerce, etc. So it's really great. So here at Green Hat, so we're a Denver-based company, and one of our mission statement is to provide free educational workshop to the community. It's a way for us to give back. It's a way for me to stay sharp too, honestly. Like when I give a presentation, I have to be on top of my game. I have to make sure I know like the latest tips and tricks. And so it's a way for me to stay sharp also with people's questions. And it's just a way for us to give back. So, we appreciate you guys all coming out here. We're doing this for free. And let me now let Carrie Singer from the Commons on Champa introduce herself as well.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Ryan. It's great to be a part of this morning's session. As Ryan mentioned, I work for local government, so I'm with the Denver Economic Development and Opportunity Office, and we have partnered with Green Hat Web Solutions on a series of webinars. So I'm so happy to hear that many of you have taken part in these webinars in the past. The other effort that I want to talk about is our work with the Commons on Champa. So again, while we're a Denver-based entity, many of our workshops and programs are open to the community and they are virtual. So the Commons on Champa, located in Denver, Colorado, provides free business advising and a plethora of workshops and programs. So if you're curious to learn more, I will post that in the chat. And I would encourage those of you who are out of state to reach out to your local government office, because there may be resources that can help from a growth and development standpoint. Here in Denver, some of the services that we offer to support our local business community include small business lending, tax credit incentive programs, certifications, workforce services, and then again, free business advising. So take advantage of what your community has to offer. And I hope you all enjoy the session today.
Great, thank you very much, Carrie. And Michael Bevis, I will let you introduce yourself now. Michael is our guy who's going to be walking us through Shopify. And so go ahead, Michael.
Great, thanks. Yeah, so I'm Michael Bevis. I actually work with Carrie Singer in the Office of Economic Development and Opportunity here in Denver, and work alongside her at the Commons on Champa, where we offer many of the resources that Carrie talked about. And I'm glad that she shared that for our folks that are on here from outside of the Denver area, is that highly encourage you to reach out to your local Office of Economic Development. In our role, it's conversations usually end with, gee, I didn't even know your office existed, or that these kinds of resources are out there. So I always say we're the best kept secret, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So reach out to them and be a little proactive and see what tools and services that they can help to offer you, because we want to see you be successful and thrive in your communities there. So looking forward to sharing with you a little bit about my experience and my journey. I'm by no means an expert in this space, but I definitely have learned through blood, sweat, and tears. So I happen to be the founder and CEO of a company called Cool Skins, where I make a physical product in the pet care space, and we're a direct-to-consumer model. And I've kind of learned this journey about how to build an e-commerce site and reach my consumers in the most effective way possible. So looking forward to chatting with you today.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Michael. So I can say that as a business owner myself, I have really benefited from the services of Carrie and Michael through like the SBDC and Denver Economic Opportunity and Development, because I go to them with questions. If I want to hire an employee, if I have a tax question, if I have like a filing status question, should we be like, S Corp, LLC, C Corp, all that stuff, like I turn to them and they're a great resource. So I really recommend, using them or your local government agency. As Carrie said, it's great to have like this free resource available for you. And so also here on the call today, I have Ken Miller. He is my co-founder, and he is going to talk a lot about WordPress in our next session. So you can say hi, Ken.
Hello.
So in today's session, what we are going to be doing is we're going to be talking about, just at a high level introduction, about these various platforms and which one is best for you. And we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each one. And then in our next session, which is scheduled for 2 weeks from now, Michael and Ken will both provide a deeper dive into WordPress with WooCommerce and Shopify. So we will get into a little bit that today. It's going to be kind of like a high level. And if you really enjoy what you hear, make sure to come back in 2 weeks as well for like the deeper dive into it as well. So, okay. So with that said, let me share my screen here. Okay. So, good. Well, thank you very much again for everyone coming out here today. The first question that I have for you guys, for us to think about, is what are you selling? And this makes a difference. The way you answer this question will influence what we recommend to you on which platform you use for your e-commerce store. Are you selling physical products or non-physical products and services? So examples of physical products is like, something that you make from home. As Michael said that he sells pet clothing options. Even food is considered like a physical object, maybe something you make in your own kitchen and you're selling. Clothes or electronic items, all that would be like a physical product. A non-physical product or service could include something like carpet cleaning, because you're not actually giving them carpet, you're cleaning their carpet. It could be like a massage or a consulting or coaching. Consultants nowadays and life coaches, business coaches, those would be like a service. Hairstyling and auto repair are services as well, including our business of web development. And maybe you also are creating digital downloads like or white papers or ebooks that people can purchase. Maybe that is your thing. In that case, though, even though it is like a thing, like an ebook as a thing, it's actually a non-physical one. And so this could be influencing which platform you use. So here are the options for non-physical products or services. You could include some. You could create an e-commerce website with WordPress and WooCommerce. So WooCommerce is a way to enable e-commerce on WordPress. It's a very, very good e-commerce platform. WordPress is usually a great choice for people who want easy access to control the content of their website, who perhaps also want the blog and maybe an events page, maybe something other than besides just e-commerce. WordPress is very scalable. It's great for a very small mom and pop shop, but it's also very good and usable for an enterprise level. It's very scalable. You can use it to serve many different types of clients. Depending on your development skills, you can really scale it for different ways. Shopify is a great solution especially if you just want to get started really quick and start selling products online on a great platform. Shopify is that way. Magento offers your self-hosted situation, and it can be very complex. It's a very in a good way and a bad way, both. If you need a lot of complexity in like the way that you are selling products and how you're doing fulfillment in your back end, Magento could be a good choice for you if you need like a lot of access like that. BigCommerce is and Weebly and Wix and Squarespace, they are all kind of they offer uh, cloud hosted solutions for selling your e-commerce items. Now, if you are selling physical products online, you could also consider all of the things that we mentioned here on the left. All of those, WordPress, Shopify, Magento, BigCommerce, Weebly, Wix, and Squarespace, as well as selling on some of these existing e-commerce platforms, such as Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, Facebook Shops. And here, like on the pennyhoarder.com, there is an additional information on that. So in fact, actually, let me take a moment to say real quick that after this presentation, we will send out a video recording and the slides to this. So you will have this all available. We'll email this to you. If you've joined this Zoom meeting, then we're able to email this, we'll add you, and then you can get a copy of these slides. Also too, actually, I forgot to mention that this is a very interactive workshop. So I welcome you to ask questions at any time. You can interrupt me. You can interrupt me as I'm speaking, or you can write something in the chat and we'll get that answered for you. So in fact, actually, let me pause real quick and ask, is there anyone, would people just like to just say real quick, what e-commerce platforms they are already using or that they want to use?
Hey, Ryan, this is Kurt. And I'm partnering with a business that is selling digital branding templates.
Okay.
So the non-physical products.
Yes.
And we're actually on Squarespace, but using Teachable.
Okay, great.
Those.
Really good.
And I don't know if you can get into the taxing in Colorado, but man, apparently that's extremely complicated because it's just the way it's set up in Colorado. But Teachable was one way to sort of take, so that we didn't have to deal with that ourselves, like sales tax and different municipalities, et cetera. Teachable sort of handled that for us. And Teachable seems to be getting in, more and more into the business of selling these digital downloads. So that's one way we're doing it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kurt. I'm really glad that you brought that up. Yeah, Teachable is a great option, and that actually reminds me of another platform out there is Patron. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Have you considered that too? I know that's also something that's similar to Teachable.
Yeah, we didn't really consider that. We sort of came upon Teachable and went down that path, and it sort of made sense.
Okay.
And really, we have the website that is where you learn all, it's where the blog is and most of the content. And then it's a pretty seamless jump over to Teachable just to do the actual purchasing.
Great.
So, that's another good one. Yeah.
Yeah, and are you saying that is the tax thing with Teachable though so complex or a little more than you wanted that you are considering maybe not using it, or you're concerned about it? Were you kind of saying that?
No, Teachable. So the tax thing, and my partner in this did all the research on it. And if we had tried to sell the products ourselves on our own website, we would have had to charge different sales taxes. And maybe the city government folks can chime in on this. And there's probably whole webinars that need to be done on that. But it seemed the way Colorado is set up, it's not like one sales tax for the state. It's like all these different municipalities, and you have to kind of keep track of where people are buying it from because we're based in Colorado. We have to keep track of this, and it seemed overly complicated. And when you go to something like Amazon, for instance, or Teachable, they handle that for you.
Yeah.
So that was like almost a no-brainer. Like, okay, let's pay Teachable. post the products there. They're going to handle all that stuff.
Okay, great.
And they're just capitalizing on the economies of scale platforms like Teachable are. So you can get like plugins for your existing websites, like tax jar as an example, is one example that'll automatically calculate those sales tax for you and collect it on your behalf. You still have to file it, and I think Teachable has some benefits in that realm for you.
Yeah,
so.
I think we came across, I think TextJar was one. We're on Squarespace, so like plugins, the way it might work better on obviously on a WordPress platform than Squarespace.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Anyone else? Would anyone else like to say what platforms they're using or want to use?
Oh, go ahead.
I started using Wix and BigCommerce and didn't like the lack of control I've got. So now I'm on WordPress with WooCommerce and I've got the control I want.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's actually a common reason for switching to WordPress and WooCommerce over something like BigCommerce and Wix. You just have more control, more code available to you to mess with. Yes, thank you. And Larry, what about you?
I actually took on a client and did some WordPress stuff with PHP and that kind of thing. So technically, I know a little bit of the ins and outs of WordPress, but personally speaking, I opened a store on Shopify, and I integrated that with Printful, with t-shirts, and then with Facebook as well. The tricky thing is with Facebook shops, there's all these rules. So I'm constantly trying to find out those rules and make sure I'm able to open the store, because I've had a couple of my ads either disabled or my account not able to publish. So I'm still learning in that space, but I've sold tons of personal stuff on Facebook Marketplace. So yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much for sharing. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Yeah, it's great to have this discussion so anyone else can speak up anytime. So now we're going to talk a little bit about creating your own website versus using an existing platform or service. If you create your own WordPress website, and I'm not talking about WordPress.com that's self-hosted or that's cloud hosted. I'm talking about like a self-hosted situation. That would be considered, creating your own e-commerce website. Or at least the way I'm considering. Actually, sorry, I forgot. Actually, what I meant to say here is, for when I'm considering here creating your own website, I'm actually also considering the cloud-based solutions as well for this one. So I'm talking about, like, for example, Shopify, Wix, Squarespace. Those are kind of an example of creating your own website. When I'm talking about using an existing e-commerce service, I'm talking about using something like Amazon or Facebook Shops, Etsy, Craigslist, and stuff like that. There are some benefits and disadvantages with each one, and I'd love to hear, some people's comments on that. One of the benefits of having your own e-commerce website, and this could include both self-hosted and cloud-hosted, is that you can have your own custom domain. franksbarbecuegloves.com or whatever. It's your own website. You don't have any competitor, you don't have any competitors on that same service on your website. You don't have any competitors on there, or you don't have any ads on your own website, at least if you're doing like a paid version. It's very good for SEO because you have your own website, and it's something that visitors can find through organic search. You can have 100% control of the branding, and meaning, like, you can change the colors. I guess actually I should kind of qualify that by saying with some like a cloud hosted solution like Wix or Squarespace, you might have a little bit less control in regards to modifying some of like the maybe heading styles that you would with like a WordPress site or Shopify site. But overall, though, you really you do have more control of branding than using an existing e-commerce service. The one disadvantage of this, though, of using an e-commerce website is that you may, or actually, I wouldn't even say it's a disadvantage, but you have to pay for hosting, whether it's either whether you're using a hosted. And actually, and later on in a later slide, I'll talk about some of like the costs of like the different options here. So, because sometimes paying for your own hosting is actually worth it versus paying the transaction fees of using e-commerce services. So we'll talk about that. So in the right-hand column here, what we're talking about here is this is like an existing e-commerce service like Amazon, Facebook Shops, Craigslist, Etsy, stuff like that. Is one, they can be very easy to use. Though it's actually funny, Larry just shared with us that Facebook Shops can be very difficult. So I should qualify that too. Usually, I guess the difference, what I mean by very easy to use, is that you don't have to deal with kind of like creating your own website, which obviously can be a much bigger project than just uploading products and customizing it. But as Larry pointed out, though, there still can be some complexities around using an existing service too. So I'm glad he mentioned that. But one of the greatest things about using an e-commerce service like Amazon is people are already there. You don't have to worry about SEO in a certain sense because people are already there. The reason why you use Amazon is because people are already there looking for stuff, and you're just trying to, you're jumping into the mix. You're like, you want to join the party. People are already searching for pet clothes, and you're just like, and you create, and you add your own products, and you're saying, okay, look at, here's mine too. And you're joining the party, you know, everyone's shopping and buying and all that. You don't have to create your own website. You don't have to create your own blog. But as we'll go into some of this a little bit later, the transaction fees can be very expensive. So would anyone like to comment on the difference between using an existing e-commerce service versus creating a custom or your own website? Okay, so what do you pay for? Like, what exactly do you pay for if you're creating your own e-commerce website versus if you're using an existing service? Because it's different. And so I think I should really kind of explain this. And when I'm talking about creating an e-commerce website, again, I'm talking about both the cloud-based solutions like Shopify and the self-hosted solutions like WordPress and WooCommerce and Magento and stuff like that. So on those solutions, what exactly are you paying for? Well, one, you're paying for the domain name, franksbarbecuegloves.com. You're paying for the hosting itself. It's either going to be cloud hosted or self-hosted, and there's quite a range of different costs available for that. And then you also need to pay for the transaction fees for the merchant service. In other words, like to take people's credit cards, you might be using the merchant service provider like PayPal or Authorize.net or Square. And every time that someone creates or purchases something, a portion of that transaction will go for those fees. And then you'll also be paying for web development and maintenance. So if you're using, for example, if you want like a WordPress.com site, WordPress.org, a self-hosted solution with WooCommerce, and you actually want like a developer to make some modifications to that, you may need to pay a developer. Regarding maintenance, it's very important that you do maintenance. Very important. And okay, so what is maintenance? Well, maintenance is, especially for people using self-hosted solutions like a WordPress website, is that plugins and themes are regularly becoming updated. New updates are being released for them. And you always want to update them, or almost always. I mean, there could be some exceptions on when these updates are released, because what these updates are designed to do is they're designed to fix vulnerabilities. In other words, they've found maybe ways that people could exploit the code and hack your website or get into the back end through some backdoor, something like that. Or sometimes an update is released to fix a bug or to make it faster for performance reasons. So this is something that you will have to consider when you're thinking about, well, should I create my own e-commerce website or should I use an existing one? Something that you'll need to consider here is if you're creating your own website, you will be responsible for some maintenance if it's a self-hosted solution, especially. However, if it's a cloud-hosted solution, something like Shopify, they may be taking care of that maintenance themselves in the back end that you might not even be aware of. Okay, so what are you paying for if you're using an existing e-commerce service though? Well, you're going to be using like a service plan with them, and that could be like a monthly service plan, and that will, just to perhaps like just to get listed, you might have to pay like some sort of fee. And the transaction fees are going to be very different. The transaction fees are going to be more expensive on this e-commerce service than on just using a merchant service from your own e-commerce website. And unless actually money is exchanged offline, which there are actually, if you're selling locally, like for example, Craigslist within your local community, you could be exchanging money offline and save yourself from transaction fees. All right, so here's an example of some existing e-commerce services, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of these prices here. So on Amazon, if you are an individual, Amazon's going to automatically charge you 99 cents per item sold plus additional fees just to use their platform. And for the professional plan, which is there anyone here selling their items on Amazon?
I sell my stuff on Amazon, but
Okay.
I use a third party partner. So they basically buy from me at wholesale and they manage everything on the Amazon site.
Oh, great. Yeah, really good. And can you explain to us like kind of how you came in to that relationship with the wholesaler, and kind of just maybe explain a little bit about what that looks like if someone's interested in doing that?
Yeah, so I came across them because I was starting to dig in and do the research on building my own Amazon site store for our products, and started diving into all these fees and realized, it's pretty steep here from a percentage of the cost of the products. And so I started looking at brokers and just came across this group. They were actually referred to me from another business that used to work out of the Commons on Champa. And so I gave them a call. I called a couple of their other competitors and pricing was roughly the same. And so I went with the recommended company, and that's how they do that.
That's nice, actually. And that's not something that I have experience in. I haven't used that type of setup before. So how does like their pricing model work, their fee structure?
Yeah, in the end of the day, for me and my initial assessment of me just kind of digging into it, I was going to be paying basically close to 40% margins to set up my own shop, plus the time commitment to do it. And then this other party, they basically buy from me at wholesale. So like a typical retail model. So my product retails for $80. They pay me $40. They retail it, we have an agreement for them to have a minimum advertised price. So they have to sell it for the same price as my local retail shops and what we sell on our website. But so for basically 10% more than what it would have cost me to do it by myself, I have the ease and convenience of not having to manage it. So they've built a branded page on Amazon. So it looks like everything's coming from me, and the microscopic print on the right side, when you check out, it says this item is shipped by, the name of the company is called Aintree. And they fulfill it. So they order from me a handful of times throughout the year, and they order in bulk, a couple hundred units at a time, and they fill the store. They send me the shipping label, and the units get shipped directly to an Amazon warehouse in 3 different locations throughout the United States and Australia.
That's great. And and you find that basically it's worth it, like that extra 10% that you're paying.
Yeah,
It
I'm a
allows,
solopreneur, so the
yeah.
time commitment for me to manage the whole process, it just wasn't worth it for me.
Mhm. That's really great. And do they also sell on other platforms, or is this one exclusively Amazon?
They specifically focus on Amazon. It's interesting because I mentioned that we have a presence down in Australia. And Amazon, my understanding, is not the preferred platform by Australian consumers. So they use the platform name, I'm drawing a blank on it, but it's very similar to, I'm drawing a blank on the names of the sites that are popular here, like Fair. Faire. So Faire's like kind of like a Facebook marketplace, but it's specifically for physical products. I talked to a lot of local retail shops that have physical locations here in Denver, and they use that site, and they get a ton of traction on those sites like Fair. So the name of the site in Australia is, I'm drawing a blank on, but it's similar to that. So it's like a third party vendor, but Amazon apparently is not popular with consumers down in Australia.
Right. And so when they buy in bulk from you before they actually get orders to sell it, so they're actually taking a risk in a certain sense. They're assuming that they can sell your products. They're buying from you in bulk, and then they try to sell what they own. Or what
and they promote on the site. You know, they do SEO work and things like that on the site to help draw people that are searching, in my case, for pet products to our site as a top site.
Okay.
So they're doing that work. Again, another thing that I don't have to spend time and commitment trying to figure out.
And how did you first, so did you kind of like have to sell yourself to them before they take you on, right? Like they had to approve of your products and kind of agree to sell them after they inspected them and thought that it was worth selling them. What was that process?
Yeah, and as you're well aware, the way Amazon works is it's volume, right? So if you're not turning products out there and volume, and Amazon's not making their fees on the items that you're selling, they're not going to help promote you. So the company was pretty critical about that piece, and they're also critical about my ability to fulfill inventory, replenishment, basically.
Okay. And have you ever had any problems with that, or is it? Well, I guess
I did have problems with that. In 2020, there was this thing called COVID. I don't know if anybody's heard of it, but it really put a kink in our production capabilities.
Interesting.
Almost all the raw materials, doesn't matter where I get it manufactured here in the United States or not, the raw materials come out of China.
Yep.
And that it really threw a kink in there. So we missed more than half the year last year with production needs. So demand far outpaces my ability to produce product fast enough right now.
Interesting. That's great. I really appreciate you sharing that information. Can you add in the comments like the information on where to go if someone else is interested in using that service?
Sure. Yeah, I'll put their contact info in there.
Yeah, that's really good. Would someone else like to share their experience of using either a wholesaler or just themselves using Amazon and the pricing versus maybe Facebook shops or something else? Okay, well, let me actually go on here to say that for Amazon, you can be expecting to pay 15% or 15% of your product to Amazon. And that's a big chunk, so if you're selling a product for $100, Amazon's keeping $15 of that, or possibly more. And Michael, actually, could you kind of explain again more about how you kind of ended up paying up to 40%?
Well, because I was just looking again at kind of the maintenance and the management of everything. I was factoring my time into that as well.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Really good. Okay. Thank you. And then for Facebook shops, for example, the selling fee is 5% per shipment, and it has a flat fee of 40 cents for shipments of $8 or less. And for them, their model is a little bit different. The selling fee is it includes taxes, it includes the cost of payment processing, and stuff like that. So Larry, would you mind telling us a little bit more about your experience with Facebook shops and the rates that they are charging, and how your opinion on the quality of that service for those fees, et cetera?
Well, I only was successful in terms of doing Facebook ads and campaigns, which I also did on Instagram. But I'm still in conversation with Facebook e-commerce specialists to see what I need to do to get it published. So I have yet to open my store on Facebook. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Okay, so now we're going to talk about some differences between WordPress and Shopify specifically. We're going to get really deep into this in the next webinar. We're going to talk about the options you have, the customizations, but at a high level, here are some differences between a WordPress WooCommerce versus a Shopify site. In a WordPress WooCommerce site, you're hosting it yourself. You have to take responsibility for that. And you could use like a hosting provider like WP Engine is a great provider for WordPress websites. I would stay away from the cheap economy ones like GoDaddy, or at least the cheap plans that they have. I mean, they may have some more better plans, but because you're really sacrificing a lot of performance issues when you go on those really cheap plans. And you're also increasing your vulnerability because WP Engine does a little bit better job at security for WordPress. And so whereas Shopify takes care of that for you. You don't have to worry about the hosting. So for Shopify's site, they're going to manage all that in the back end. They're going to do like the maintenance stuff. And so, it's one less thing for you to worry about. On both of them, you can have a custom domain. And on both of them, you can have full control of theme and branding. Like you have access to templates. You can create your own templates. You can purchase templates or themes from people like Theme Forest, and you can upload them to the website. And you do have a lot of control. And you can also add in a blog and other basic pages to both a WordPress and a Shopify site. And so one benefit of a Shopify, it's very easy to get started. You can start selling really quickly. With WordPress, it is a little bit longer setup time because you have to configure the hosting, you have to get the domain, and kind of choose which theme you want. And I should say, if you're editing that theme, you'll have to kind of take that into consideration. So with the WooCommerce thing too, you also can choose which merchant service provider you want, whether PayPal, Square, Authorized.net. And Michael, actually, can you remind me, are there options in Shopify to use different merchant service providers?
Yeah. So okay. I have like Google Pay and PayPal and then Shopify Pay
and you can kind of toggle on and off maybe which ones that you want to use.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's great to get people to checkout options. That's great. Yeah.
Yep.
With the WordPress site, one really good thing about this too is that you have a very, very big community, which means many, many different plugins available. So if you need like any special integrations with some other fulfillment software, it's very likely that a plugin will exist out there for WordPress already, because it's just such a big community and so popular of a platform. And you can also scale and modify the website without restrictions. That's probably perhaps one difference from Shopify, is that you can just basically make your WordPress site into like a portal where users are logging in, doing all this other stuff besides just e-commerce as well. So these are kind of some differences between those two options.
The one thing I would mention, it's because I did WordPress, the front end, and it doesn't really come with a back end. Meaning, if you wanted to save entries from WordPress into a database, it has recommendations like SiteGround to or it basically has a PHP like plugin that can store your database in any flavor of database you want. If you wanted to do, put that in a report or do some type of analytics on it, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
For WordPress, yeah.
Right. So what you're saying basically, if I understand correctly, you're saying that Shopify is going to have that data for reporting specifically a little bit more easily available than WordPress. And is that kind of what you're saying, that the Shopify might have that a little bit more easily?
Yeah, because Shopify kind of has the out of the box, components like reporting and analytics, but WordPress not so much. So
Right.
like you said, you can have all those apps that can do that, but if you wanted to really have a customized solution to throw it in the database of your choice, it gives you this like my PHP admin if you wanted to do a MySQL database. So
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, thank you for that comment, Larry. I agree. That is one thing that just kind of makes Shopify easier to get started. WordPress, you might have to do a little bit more of a manual configuration setup to get the data and reports that you need.
Yep.
Okay, so based on the last time I looked for Shopify sites, here's the pricing structure, really. So for Shopify, you're doing like $29 a month for a basic Shopify site. And then they have different credit card rates and in-person credit card rates and different fees for all other payment providers based on the type of plan you have. So there is, obviously the more advanced plan you get, the lower the fees go. And also too, Shopify now has Shopify Plus, which is a great solution if your store is doing like $1 million in revenue a year. And there's some really good advantages for Shopify Plus as well. And is anyone already using like Shopify Plus? Larry, have you kind of worked on that, or are you more just in the which Shopify plan do you like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just starting off with basic just because I just started it, but I've seen some videos on Shopify Plus, so
Right.
I'm trying to get acclimated to what all is out there with Shopify.
Okay. Oh, great. We're good. Okay, so when you choose a merchant service provider, here's just like one option here too. Like Authorize.net is a popular one, and you basically would have to pay like a $25 per month fee to them for their gateway, and then they charge different transaction or a transaction fee like 2.9%. So there are different ones out there, and based on my latest information, PayPal, for example, is a very popular one, but it's also one of the more expensive options. And has anyone done any research recently to compare some of these different merchant service providers to and would like to share kind of what they found? If anyone has been kind of looking, whether you use Authorize.net, we actually use a more obscure one called the formerly BluePay, now Clover. But I wonder if anyone would like to share some of their experience in researching these different merchant service providers. And Michael, you
much recently, Ryan. Initially, I did some initial looking around, but it kind of kept coming back to PayPal and Square.
Yeah.
As an example, and the price points were relatively the same. Square might have been slightly cheaper, but a lot of vendors that I know, in the beginning, I used to sell a lot of my products like at pop-up fairs and these kinds of things. And a lot of the vendors there, the feedback was primarily they liked using Square better than PayPal, primarily for taking payment for transactions that were done at the fair, just speed and ease of use primarily. PayPal had some glitches and still has some glitches for me on a regular basis, but that's what I still use for for that. But on my website, they have multiple options.
So do you still sell products in person, like at fairs as well?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And
Again, COVID put a wrench into that, but they're starting to come back now. So.
okay. And you use Square primarily for that. So they've given you this little device that you can like slide your credit card through, or do you like the iPad one, or what?
Yeah, so PayPal is an example. This is infuriating. So they, most of the services, when you sign up for them, they send you a free dongle that you can like plug into your phone or your iPad or whatever and swipe a card.
Mhm.
PayPal, if you use that little free dongle, they hold the money for like 10 days or something afterwards, because they want to make sure the transaction's clear. But if you buy their upgraded card reader version or their chip reader version, which costs, I don't know, $25 or something, then they release the funds immediately. So, if you do a couple $1,000s worth of transactions at a fair and you're dependent on that money, or you like to have that money, sooner rather than later, it can be a little bit frustrating, but yeah.
And you said this is through PayPal, or is this
PayPal.
example you're talking about through Square?
I don't know. I don't think Square does that, but PayPal did.
So a 20-time fee, or is that like a monthly?
Yeah, no, you kind of own the device. It's a little tiny piece of plastic, and it's Bluetooth synced, so it doesn't have to be plugged into your actual device, and it allows you to read the chip reader, the chip on credit cards, the security chip. The
Great.
dongles only allow you to swipe the magnetic strip on the back of the card, and apparently that's not as secure.
Okay. And do you use that chip reader now?
Yeah, when it works.
Yeah, when it works.
I always
Yeah.
have to have a backup, so it's not always guaranteed. Because sometimes, you could be in a spot too where you don't get Wi-Fi service and all this kind of stuff. So that gets to be a little challenging to take payments in person.
Well, that's actually a good point too. What happens if you're in a place with no Wi-Fi service? Can either one of those options still allow the transaction to work? Or
Yeah, you can take the transaction still. You have to manually input the card information, and then there's additional fees because you manually input the card number instead of swiping a magnetic strip or using the security chip.
yeah, great. Yeah, that's a great, great piece of advice. Yeah. So, okay, so when you go to fairs, then do you bring both solutions with you? Like what kind of stuff do you bring?
Yeah, I always have the backup to the backup plan, I say. So, I actually have two dongles and this Bluetooth empowered chip reader. And the preference is to use the chip reader because, as I mentioned, your funds get released automatically. It's pretty, when it works, it's actually pretty convenient because you can just have it on. Like sometimes I have multiple people in the booth with me, and they can all have my PayPal account on their phones or their tablets, and they can use any of the devices. They can take the payment, and during the process, the customer is asked if they would like a receipt and how they would like it, a text message, an email, whatever the case is, and they can input that information there, which provides me with additional, data that I can use down the road for understanding my customers and those kinds of things, or communicating with my customers. And then they just sign it with their finger. So pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So no printing of physical receipts or anything like that. They just get them emailed or text messaged.
Yep. No printing of physical receipts. That's great. And just out of curiosity, then, so you also, I assume, accept cash at your fairs too, right?
Yep.
Yep. Great.
As much as people want to give me, I'll accept it all day long.
Yeah. I agree. Really good. Thank you very much for that example. Would anyone else like to share some of their experiences with either selling in person versus selling online, and some of these devices that Michael was talking about?
I was just going to say, I'm just here to kind of learn because I want to sell online, and I've always just sold in person. So I just appreciate everybody sharing all the information, but I don't have anything about selling online.
Well, yeah, thank you, Melissa. I appreciate you making the comment right there. We do have just a little bit more time for some chit chat and comments. So can you tell me just a little bit about what your plan is? I'd love to hear and talk that through with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of working with a business partner about a lot of different ideas. So the plan's not really clear, but one would be to sell online either through Amazon or kind of here today to learn more. So everything you guys are sharing is very helpful. My background is pretty much interior design, but I also sell some tech stuff, but I'm not a tech person. And so I'm just really trying to learn about all the different platforms and learn about whichever business idea we go with would be the best one. So, but yeah, my background is really selling in person and old school contracts and digital contracts and that kind of stuff. And I've used Square, like I sold jewelry for fun. So I used Square just to use, to sell that, or take cash. So, but no, this is really helpful. So I appreciate everybody giving input, but I really don't know much about everything everybody is talking about. So.
Yeah. Are you going to also sell services like the interior design services?
Well, that's one of the business concepts is, I've always done interior design. And so one is maybe to have packages. And if I go with this one business idea, it would definitely be something where somebody could just do it and pay all online and then be transact, which is, totally new to me. So, but yeah, I think this is exciting. It's a lot of stuff. I know a little stuff, but I don't know a lot, and I'm not super techie, but I do work with people that know way more than I know. So.
Yep. Well, that's the smart thing to do. Yes, surround yourself with people who know more than you do.
Yeah.
That's the smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, yeah, feel free to reach out to me with questions. I'm happy to answer any questions. And my email address, maybe Ali, you could add my email address into the chat box. And also, though, that if you really enjoyed this and appreciated this presentation today, we would really love a review on our Google or Yelp page. And we'll send out the link to that as well. This just kind of is a way to help us spread our word. Again, part of our mission is to offer free and insightful, actionable, helpful information to the community. And one thing that just really helps us keep going and doing this is by getting some good reviews. So we'd love to have that. And next in our next presentation, 2 weeks from now, Michael and Ken will go deeper into WordPress. We'll talk about fulfillment options, taxes, all that stuff. It'll be a great presentation. And then after that, we will also we'll talk about some SEO for e-commerce as well as Google Analytics. And if in case by chance you missed some past presentations, last week 2 weeks ago, we talked about image optimization. And as Gerald was saying in the beginning here, he found it really helpful because images can take up or can cause some of the slow load times issues that your website may have. And a lot has changed on the way to optimize images since, over the 20 years that I've been in this business. So much has changed. And so there's that video is up on YouTube if you want to watch it. There's also one about branding. And then Michael and Carrie, again, are always available to help if you have any business questions about, hey, what kind of tax selection should I use? Or I have a legal question. They're available to help with that, or at least for businesses here in the Denver area. And so, but we do hope you'll join us again. So thank you very much for coming out. And I wish you guys all a great day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian.
Bye.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Bye.